everybody, and welcome into the 17th edition, this is, of Smith and Hesson, and as usual, plenty to talk about in the world of cricket. Joined by my co-host, Mike Hesson, of course, former Blackcaps coach and operations guru at the Royal Challengers Bangalore. He's with us over there, and Emily Drumm, of course, who I'm not quite sure whether Emily is a happy White Ferns selector or not quite so happy. Emily, let's start with women's cricket and the White Ferns, because they came back beautifully in Game 3 of that series against England, having lost the first two, on the back of Amy Satterthwaite's magnificent 100 and a great all-round performance by Amelia Kerr. So are we happy as a selector? Do we see progress being made, or are we just a little bit dissatisfied with the whole deal?
Frustrated would probably be the right word. We've got such a good side on paper, but it takes the side a wee while to get going, in my opinion. So it's a little bit hard to measure where we're at. But that chase in the third game was a really good chase. The first two games were disappointing, and just not enough runs coming from that top side, that top five. So the side's not able to defend a low total. So look, mixed feelings. Really happy to see Brooke Halliday come into the side and do really well, and nice for Amy to get 100. But yeah, mixed feelings, but it'll make the side feel good going into the T20 series against England to finally get a win under the belt.
All right, so what's happening there? Bob Carter's been the long-time coach of the side. You have to sit back and analyse. I know you have a little say in the selection, and I don't know about tactically, but are you satisfied that the coach, the captaincy with Sophie Devine, etc., is gelling nicely enough for you? I mean, you're running out of opportunities to prepare with what's coming up.
Yeah, I agree. There's certainly some questions that need to be asked and some answers to be found, and whether that's personnel or captaincy or coach issues. I think I'm not that close to the playing group and the management side of the team. So my position is to choose the players or the best players available. But it is starting to raise more awareness around, are things gelling? Are they going in the right direction? Have they got the right people doing the right things? And I know there was a change of batting in order to try and get off to a good start. That was a plan, and it did happen in some ways, but just not enough contributions from certain players, and the senior players are the ones that need to stand up, and they just didn't do that in the first two games. So I'm yet to speak to Bob, and I am due to speak to him before this T20 series is to start, to see what we can do around that one-day side and set up.
Well, my perspective is this is a fully professional sport now. Okay, they haven't got the same wage parity as men have, but we've got enough full-time women professionals playing the game in this country with a full-time administrative setup behind the White Ferns to be asking these questions now, and asking openly. If you were to make a change at the top, if you felt that the team was just meandering along and wasn't responding to the coaching setup as such, are you not leaving it a bit late, Emily, to do something about it?
Maybe. It's a really hard one to answer, because I don't appoint coaches or any of the supportive or assistant coaches, and there isn't a batting coach at the moment with the White Ferns on contract, and that's a real concern for me. That is to be addressed in the winter, so that is something I am concerned about. But you're right, there's a lot of problems, questions that answers need to be found very quickly, and what changes that need to be made, well, then they need to be made really quickly, or stick with status quo and try and build on that.
No, well, it's not.
Just to stick up for coaches briefly,
okay.
Smithy. Sorry, mate, just to stick up for coaches briefly. It's obviously a combination of things, isn't it? Because, I mean, I think Bob's been there for a year or two, and clearly the results haven't been great, but they haven't been great for a while. There needs to be a really good think about the direction and the way we're playing our one-day cricket, because, as a White Ferns supporter, as we all are, we certainly need to see some improvements in those results.
Yeah, well, just to finish off, I find it staggering when you're at home in your home patch and you've got a team that needs development, needs to work on key areas. You haven't got a batting coach available to you of any form at this time when there's so few opportunities. I find that staggering, and I don't understand why the coach hasn't banged on the door of New Zealand cricket and said, give me the resources, or give me a batting coach right now, and I've got to go forward with that. But anyway, it may be symptomatic of the issues that I've got around the side. One thing they can't complain about, people, is the pitch surfaces. They've been pretty damn good to play on, as opposed to, here we go again, the one we saw for the last test in India. Now, look, I'm fully in favour of action in cricket. I love seeing spin bowlers brought into the game, but I cannot see anything good, apart from India winning from their perspective, about two-day test matches. I just can't. I think they're a bad advertisement for the game. I think they're almost a complete waste of time for the resources that go on from television, from marketing and all that sort of thing, to have 3 days of test cricket gone because of supposedly of pitch condition. Now, I ask you again, Mike Hesson, when the ball explodes through the surface on day one, is that good enough? And really, did England throw in the towel? Did they just say after that, seeing that it's a question of when, not if, for us? Was it good enough this time round?
Well, it was a new venue, obviously Ahmedabad, so they hadn't played a test match there before. Obviously, England were confused because they went in with 3 frontline seamers and Ben Stokes. So there was plenty of green grass on the surface. It was thin, but there was obviously enough for them to go, look, we're only going to play 1 frontline spinner, whereas obviously India looked at it differently and said, no, we're going to play 3. And obviously when you've got home conditions, you know how to deal with it. I think the other part of it is that a lot of the wickets came from balls that went straight on, and there was a lot of talk about that in the media about was it technique, was it not? And I think once again that plays in the home side's favour, rightfully so. If we're playing in New Zealand and the ball's seaming, we grow up and we learn to hold the line, and we don't follow the ball, so we don't nick it. So we hold the line, we generally play and miss, and that's what generally Indian players do as well when it turns and bounces. So you look to defend your stumps. You look to defend the straight ball, and if one turns and takes your edge, so be it. But there were so many wickets taken on that surface where the ball just skid on. Batsmen were looking to play for turn, getting either hit on the front pad or getting their poles knocked over. And there was no adjustment throughout the game. So I'm certainly not defending the surface to say it was even close to a good surface. If they started doing that on days 3 or 4, that would be okay. But I think it also exposed some really poor techniques in terms of ability to adapt and defend your stumps.
I totally agree with you, actually, Mike. And I'll give you 2 names. Crawley. When Crawley defends against spin, you can see middle and off stump. And to me, that's just not good enough. Ollie Pope, yep. Well, I'm not quite sure what's going through his mind. I mean, his only shot or his only defence it appeared to be was a reverse sweep. Now, it's test cricket we're talking about here. So, Emily, for me, too many players bowled, too many good test players bowled, too many players hit in front to straight deliveries. Now, that's, to me, a technical issue that England have to go through before they start talking about the pitch surface.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think you need to park the pitch discussion for a moment and look at some of the poor ways that the batsmen got themselves out. And to be fair, it wasn't just England. India were dismissed pretty cheaply in some questionable decisions as well. And they got a little bit of luck going their way too around some third umpire issues. But England's defensive setup was so poor. I couldn't believe whether that was just the mindset, the jitteriness of some of the batsmen playing out in front of their pad. We just talked a couple of weeks ago about how good Joe Root was to spin, and for him to play so negatively, it was a negative mindset that I think probably put England under so much pressure. There wasn't a lot of footwork. There was only a couple of sweeps that I saw of note, but they needed to be a lot more aggressive. And yeah, it probably was always going to be a shorter match, but I just thought, England got themselves underway. Crawley got to 50. They'd set themselves up to maybe get 180, 200, but for some reason they decided that the pitch was unplayable, and that to me is just a mental side of the game that just let them down, and it sort of passed them as soon as someone stepped out onto the pitch, passing the guy on the way back. They had a chat to say it's unplayable, but like Ben Stokes hasn't featured at all in these last 2 matches, and he's usually the guy that will take them on. It's just some of the defensive strokes to lose your wicket, not good enough on the professional circuit at all.
In terms of the Test chairman, That is likely to be, I'm told, at Southampton now, around 18th of June, kicking off about the middle of, on the 18th of June. So who would we rather play, Emily? In the middle of June at Southampton, would we like to play England? Would we like to play India with their very balanced all-round attack? Because, of course, they can bring back their seamers into play alongside Bumrah. Or do we want to take on Australia in Southampton? My pick is, I think I'd probably want to take on Australia in Southampton.
Well, Australia does pop up for me because I wouldn't have played that much Test cricket the end of their summer, so they will be a little bit work shy from that point of view. I don't really mind who we play. There's thoughts for me around India because it could be quite fresh and cold, and they don't generally turn up that well in the UK. So I don't really mind who we play, to be fair, but I want to be able to play the best side, and if the Blackcaps win, we win against the best side, whoever it is. So either or, don't mind.
Hess, what about your perspective?
Well, I think we're playing India, Smithy, regardless. I can't see England getting close in this Test match, to be brutally honest. And I think India, you're right, quite a well-balanced side. I think their seamers are, underrated, probably globally. So I think we're going to see them in conditions with a Duke ball, the likes of Shami, Bumrah and co. But I think I'll still back our ability to swing the ball and attack their top order with a ball that swings. So, I think we're likely to play India, highly likely. And I like our chances if the ball swings, which I think it will at that time of year in Southampton.
I'm going to throw a theory in here. I think I'd pick Devon Conway in that Test side. You might say who for? I'll tell you who for. Unfortunately, he goes in for Tom Blundell to me. And if I know it's hard on Tom Blundell because he's done a wonderful job in that role. But his time's going to come when BJ Watling is finished and he's going to be cemented at that number 6 or 7 role for New Zealand going forward. I think that's a given and I think he deserves that opportunity. I say we pick Devon Conway in that one on those 3 tests. We've got 2 against England and then that World Championship Test final. I say we pick him from the outset and say, good luck, son. We believe you're good enough. Quite clearly he is good enough if you just look the way the boy plays. I go with him. Is that outrageous? Is that mean on Tom Blundell or is that just reality? Mike?
Yeah, look, I've always been a selector that's been about consistency, Smithy, and making sure that if the side's going well and the individuals are going well, there needs to be an opportunity open up. Devon Conway is certainly challenging that way of thinking because occasionally you come across a player who's outstanding. And when he comes on the international stage, you know that with every opportunity he excels. He still hasn't played ODI cricket yet, so obviously he's going to need that opportunity there, and they're going to get us some more information coming up. I think the thing to consider also is that Tom Blundell and Devon Conway played all the games together for Wellington at the start of the year, and there's no doubt that Devon Conway's performance in those games was far superior. We realised that Tom was going through a bit of a patch at that time. It's a good problem to have, isn't it? It's one problem that Gary Stead will be wanting to get Conway on the side, but it's very hard to find a slot. Tom Blundell's probably the only potential one. I'm not sure. I'm sort of sitting 50-50 on that, Smithy. I know where you're coming from, but I'm not convinced.
Well, I'm taking a leaf out of your book where you said about let's give Finn Allen a go because you know what you're going to get out of Munro. You know what you're going to get out of Guptill, and we got a bit more recently. So I'm just saying, Emily, and you wanted Finn Allen as well. I'm going to say, let's find out if Conway is as good a Test player as he appears that he's going to be, and throw him in there. I believe he's good enough.
Oh, I said Finn Allen if Guptill was injured. Now, the selectors are being very loyal towards the current team in each format. So it would be a natural replacement, but I just can't see room. I mean, we're winning so often as a side. The Blackcaps are winning almost every game that they wear in white. So it would be a big call to change it, especially for conditions over there where Conway's not proven, I guess. But, big call to make.
Martin Guptill, Emily, is 97 the other day, was outstanding at not Carisbrook, I'm going back in time now, University Oval of Dunedin. I'm just thinking to myself, has he saved himself? Do we just keep picking him, or do we know what we're going to get out of that, or do we experiment further? 97 good enough for you?
Sure is good enough for me, because not only is it worth persevering with the guy, but the fact is he performed under the most enormous amount of pressure that you'll find yourself in as a player. And all those test players are on notice as well, especially when you've got a Conway waiting in the wings. But I think he's been a proven performer for years, and I think it'd be probably really unusual for the selectors to change. They'll give him through to the end of the next series, and then they'll probably reassess. But I think he's certainly given himself a chance to, and he's earned the right to keep getting picked.
Okay, then, Mike Hesson, how about this? Your $2.86 million purchase. It's got a little bit of tap in those opening couple of games, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, no, he struggled. No, probably for the first time in international cricket, really, which, I don't think is a bad thing. Obviously, the side still won, and obviously he's battled to find his length, which when you put under pressure, that can happen. And obviously, pressure not only from your opposition, but also from a weight of expectation. So for Kyle, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think he's a smart enough character and surrounded by good people that he'll come out the other side of that. Obviously, when you look at a player, you don't look at a player just over a very short period of time, and you look at the characteristics that he's got. He's got some good fighting qualities. He struggled. He didn't quite find his length. He looked like he lost his run-up. He was slipping in the first game. So he's got a lot to think about. But, we know he's a very good player. And as I said, although we would like him to be performing better, we're not too worried just yet.
What about one of your former employees, Aaron Finch? Man, talk about being faithful. Australian selectors generally over the years have been probably more bloodthirsty than most. They like performance, and they like it quite often. Aaron Finch is going through a slump from hell, really, and still in the side and maintaining the leadership.
Yeah, look, I really feel for him. And I mean, yourself, Smithy, every player goes through a slump. It's just Finch's one's gone on a bit longer than certainly he would like. So it's interesting. You heard Mark Waugh the other day saying, obviously his first job is to score runs, and if he's not, get rid of him. But I think, he's better than that. I think he's a high quality player. A little bit like Guppy in many respects. That shot from Guppy that he hit over long off for six. That was just that release shot, and you knew that he was back to his best. He sort of needed one shot to go, yep, this is how I play. And I think Aaron Finch is the same. He just needs to get a score where he starts to believe again his game and his the way he goes about it. He's obviously still captaining the side well and has a lot of respect within the group, but it can't go on forever. And I'm sure he's more aware of that than anyone.
Well, COVID has raised its ugly head back here again in New Zealand, hopefully just on the fringes, and we've taken precautionary measures, of course, which has resulted in certain sporting fixtures, including the Blackcaps and the White Ferns being transferred out of Auckland. I can totally see the reason why for that. But, Mike Hesson, news out of the PSL, the Pakistan League, which is not quite so good and maybe a bit more threatening.
Yeah, well, I tuned in last night to watch the game, and it was delayed initially, and sort of unsure why it was delayed, and then obviously found out that Fawad Ahmed had tested positive for COVID. And I guess whenever you have anybody within a bubble, a bio bubble, test positive, it creates all sorts of uncertainty. So that game in the end got postponed, and obviously overnight we're going to find out what's happening, because it's pretty tricky. You get, as I said, you get a player exposed to COVID. Within a bio bubble, have you got it early enough to make sure that everybody else tests negative? And even if you get a negative test, as we well know, the day after, it doesn't mean that it's not going to rear its ugly head in a couple of days. So, here's hoping that they certainly sort that out, because that's, it's a real issue for any tournament around the world or any cricket around the world, that if there's positive cases, how much of an influence that has on the rest of the tournament.
Emily, that would be concerning, of course, and especially when you get into the handshaking phase and all sorts of outside peripheral things come into play, it could expand very, very quickly. So that's one we'll have to keep an eye on. But the West Indies and Sri Lanka start a 3-match T20 series on Thursday, live on Sky, of course, here on Channel 52. And the West Indies have called back Chris Gayle, and that's for the first time in 2 years, Emily. And Fidel Edwards has returned after a 9-year gap in playing for his country. So they'll add a little bit of fire to the side, but I just wonder whether Chris Gayle still got the motivation, because if you look at his lifestyle, he seems to look as if he's got everything pretty much under control in his own nightclub.
He's such a colourful character. I'm delighted because I really enjoy watching him. Okay, he doesn't like to run between wickets and do a lot of physical activity, but he is still box office. There's no doubt about that. And you're right, the question is around whether he can still foot it at the highest level and whether he's just keeping himself available for the World Cup that's not too far away. But I'm just amazed that they've gone back to him, but it's such a strong West Indian T20 side, so they've found room for him. So maybe they know something more than we do. But Fidel Edwards, it's certainly been a long time since he would have pulled on the West Indian team shirt for sure. But it's just going to be a good series, hopefully not affected by COVID, and I'm looking forward to watching and seeing how it unfolds.
Yeah, Chris Gayle, IPL Chris Gayle, made a fortune there, Mike. So what do you see in that?
Yeah, look, I had the fortune of coaching Chris for a year when I was at Kings 11, so certainly enjoyed him. You're right, he is full of life and he brings a huge amount of energy to the group. Last year, he actually ran between the wickets a lot more than I've seen. So it's almost like he's got to a point where he's gone, heck it, I'm just going to actually push myself a little bit harder. He's actually moved in the field and dived a bit and certainly gets a bit of enjoyment out of that. And I'm sure you're right that the lure of the World Cup being in India, where he knows the conditions so well from a West Indian fan's point of view and selector point of view, you just can't go past him. He actually had a really good IPL when he came in last year. He can bang the spinners. He even batted at 3. So they took him away from the new ball, which I think is wise now, and then allowed him to just come in at 3 after that and bully the spinners. So, yeah, and I think the Fidel Edwards one's an interesting one. Obviously, we've seen South Africa with Brexit falling over and the lack of Kolpak players not happening. Fidel Edwards went to play for Hampshire as a Kolpak player, as did so many South African players. So the fact now he's come back and available, I think it's going to strengthen both South Africa and the West Indies moving forward.
So, Mike, where are you at now, IPL time? I mean, auction teams basically sorted out. You've still got, obviously, they've got fitness tests and you've got a bracket of players that might or might not be available to come in for injury purposes. But where are you at now in terms of getting everyone together for that start date?
Yeah, so I've been watching domestic cricket for the last week, one-day cricket in Bangalore. So a lot of our players have been playing in that. And we start a camp in 2 days' time. So we've got a training camp just with 6 or 7 guys that are not involved in either India or international cricket. And then we're likely to get the squad together early 20s of March once we get the final IPL date settled. So likely to be a 7-day quarantine period where people will have to go through, and then tournaments likely to start early to mid-April. So lots to do, but still quite a bit of uncertainty.
Thanks for your input again, Hess. We'll catch up with you next week. Emily Drumm, you've got one job. You've got to go and bang your fist down on the desk of whoever involved and make your feelings to it. We must have a batting coach. Forget it about appointing one over winter. Winter's no good. You've got to have your hands on batting coach and match pressure situations that have been organised for you. I just don't understand that. So that is your job as far as I'm concerned. Good luck with that during the week.
Thank you very much for telling me what I need to do.
Well, I feel as if someone's got to. Anyway, folks. Yeah, good time to get out, Mike. Me too. Okay, folks, thanks very much for watching. We'll be back with episode number 18, and we'll just see what's unfolded in the cricket world. Of course, another test match will be underway. Some more Blackcap White Fern cricket to talk about. It just keeps on rolling around. Thanks for your company, and we'll see you again in around 7 days' time.